The Human Centipede was a controversial and topical horror film when it was first released. It gained a cult following due to its grotesque plot, which some people found to be disturbingly hilarious. It never really caught on with me, but I guess after watching Salò, I don't think cinema could get any more gross, right? Well, today I'm going to talk about not just one, but all three Human Centipede films, to the best of my ability. I'm not going to be able to show you the worst of it, but that means you'll just have to seek it out on your own. But right now, I don't think I can recommend them, and not for the reasons you may think. The Human Centipede was kept as a trilogy and had the same director for all three. Tom Six is infamous for his indulgence and lack of boundaries. The whole concept of the story was chilling, but I didn't think it would disturb me on any level. I was proven wrong. The first sequence has the late Dieter Lasser as a mad doctor. After years of being a world-renowned surgeon who can split up conjoined twins, he becomes obsessed with the mutilation of the human body, taking notes from actual experiments that were done in the haunting and troubling times of Nazi Germany. He kidnaps individuals to create a human centipede, which, as you all probably know, means putting three people on their knees in a row, ass to mouth. It's as disgusting as it sounds. The doctor overdoes it at times, but the actor kind of has this Boris Karloff look to him. I think he overall is effective, fitting the classic tropes you'd expect from early horror, which often featured mad doctors. The other two actresses were not too great. They came across as cheap stereotypes of dumb valley girls. I guess their emotions start going once they are sewn into the human centipede, but after that there's no more dialogue from them. Instead, we get Japanese actor Akira Kitamura. He doesn't speak any English, but he's giving by far the best performance. It's pretty interesting to have a Dutch production featuring a German actor, a Japanese actor, and two American actresses. It's so diverse, and it's just too bad that there's not really much else to gain with this. I'll admit that the body horror itself does freak me out. It's a genre that, regardless of quality, always manages to give me the shivers. The same thing happened in Tusk, even though that's another one people tend to laugh at rather than actually be freaked out by. I guess I just find it to be gruesome, which is the effect it should be going for. It's just too bad that it doesn't have anything else going on. It takes a long time to get to the actual human centipede, and while the smaller scope and build-up can be seen as scary, I think it just proves that there isn't enough material with this idea. There's not enough of a story. Most of it's just the doctor lingering on this idea, doing almost nothing to cover his tracks. The police even come to check on the residents after numerous individuals are reported missing, and he does a horrible job hiding his suspicious persona. He tries to poison them unsuccessfully, and the only thing that makes it even more dumb is the police officers who do an awful job once they return with a warrant. I know this stuff happens all the time in horror, but seriously, for a guy who played it pretty unassuming yet creepy throughout, he really fell apart at the end for no reason. In fact, there's a chase sequence in this with him and this girl, and it literally goes on for 20 minutes, and it's the most uneventful thing I've ever seen. There's literally no tension. They try to give some meaning to the piece when the front of the centipede finally confronts the doctor with a long, passionate speech, but up to this point, there was almost no focus on his character. We were keeping up with these two girls from the beginning, so why does he get the emotional speech? I guess the other two have their mouths sewn to buttholes, but still. For comparison, I really didn't enjoy Salò, but I understand why people find significance in it. It's attempting to actually say something about the human experience, even though I didn't really find it compelling. This one is just a chance for the director to pull off a gimmicky special effect, with almost an hour of build-up. Sure, a couple of the interiors are neat, and the impossible science of the centipede is intriguing, but overall, it's boring. This should have been a short film. Anyways, I didn't have a good time at all, but I really don't want to talk about this series ever again, so let's continue into the full sequence, the awful sequel that takes a pretty good premise and once again wastes it by creating almost no story to back it up. Lawrence R. Harvey plays Martin, a security guard who happens to be obsessed with the first movie. This one is shot black and white, which helps differentiate it as a separate world from the previous film. And it makes things even grosser, gorier, and ghastly. Seriously, this one can be hard to watch at times. The depiction of violence and disregard for humanity is at its highest level. If you don't find it shocking, then you're lying. They try to give Martin a story this time around, but it plays a lot like the Joker film from 2019. He has a mother who's constantly on his case, most people don't like him, but his therapist happens to also be a sexual abuser. He's meant to have this pathetic, sad life, which I guess gives reason for why he goes on a murder spree, then eventually creates a real-life version of his favorite movie's Human Centipede. Seriously, way more people die in this one. The centipede is 4 times larger, and there's some moments that are so messed up, I don't even think I can repeat them in a YouTube review. Let's just say, if you've seen it, this movie puts a whole new meaning to the phrase, hit the gas. In all honesty, I appreciate how it has an influence from something like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, how it's framed in a world where the first movie exists, and everything feels more real, like a higher budget snuff film. The only problem is, once again, it takes forever to get to the centipede itself, because it's just a long-winded, boring story. But also, I think this one might actually be worse, because it seems like they're trying to make us empathize with Martin. At least with the first movie's villain, he was just that, a villain. We didn't get much backstory. But this one, he's a terrifying monster. But why all this build-up showing how the world bullies him? I'm not going to support his evil deeds. Even then, as if the centipede isn't already taking things too far, but there's just other imagery and acts here that are so inhuman, it feels like an attempt to see how many audience members can leave the theater due to one feature. You'd think there's almost a beauty to the dehumanizing style, but there's nothing to attain here. This is filth for the purpose of filth, and being already so grossed out, I have no wish to sit through something like this ever again. The first movie at least has the benefit of being disturbing, but containing other assets that could make for a wild midnight show. This is just garbage that self-praises the director's previous work, while trying to be as shocking as possible. I'd avoid it. Somehow, even after that subhuman trash, they still made a third movie, the final sequence, which looks like a Hollywood-sized production, but in that direct-to-video, flashy but fake kind of way, and has the return of the 2 previous villains, but this time they're playing the heads of a prison, and they also happen to watch the first 2 Human Centipede films back-to-back, which is weird because these actors, especially the warden, who was also the doctor, look and sound so much like their other characters, it really does nothing to make you think this is another layered dimension. It just gives up on the continuity. But also, doesn't that kind of lessen the blow of the second film? It felt so real that time around, but yet again, it's just meant to be a movie in the actual real world, so I don't know, how many layers to this is there? The warden wants to use the movie science to create a large human centipede with all of the prisoners to save on costs of guards and food, and to gain the favor of the governor, played by that one actor from The Dark Knight. Actually, there's also a prisoner in this who was also a prisoner in The Dark Knight. I guess Tom Six was just a big fan. He must also be a big fan of porn because Brie Olson is in this as the warden's secretary, who he more than once sexually assaults. I guess that's what this series needed. Any credit I gave to Dieter Lasser in the first movie is gone now, because he's constantly yelling and never makes sense. I'm not sure if he's trying to give the most overacted performance ever, but he probably succeeded. He's so annoying, I wish I could show you, but I kept struggling to get this Blu-ray ripped onto my computer. Even my laptop has had enough of this garbage. Like the other ones, this is also a long-winded, boring plot that has no human centipede until literally the final 15 minutes, and once you get to it, it doesn't even come close to the disgusting effect that was created with the previous flicks. It can be gory at times, and tries to be freaky, but with the saturated color palette, I just don't find it creepy. It's as if they gave up. Even the science is rushed this time around. Pretty much anything that made the other ones identifiable was thrown away. And for what? Brie Olson? It's kind of funny that they would cast her. She's not giving a good performance, but I assumed she was only cast to do nudity. But surprisingly, that doesn't even happen. It's like Tom Six just wanted everyone to be hyped for how over the top he'd get this time around, but it's a wasted false alarm. It's not like he didn't care. I mean, he stars in the film as himself. He must have enjoyed the idea somewhat. I still think the second film is worse because it actually offended me, but this one is, in its entirety, a complete boring mess. It's just hard to discuss them because they're putting asses in seats with the asses on screen. You get that, but at what cost? I think this should have stayed a funny internet video or a horror short that would hop around the film fest circle. Instead, they all feel like failures for similar reasons, but the two sequels have their own unique problems. As a film fan, I'm glad I saw them, just to say I did, but this Blu-ray set better prepare to collect dust on my shelf. Hopefully, the final sequence stays true to its word and remains a trilogy. So few franchises stick to 3 nowadays, but I don't think anyone is clamoring for more Human Centipede. Thanks to NolanCho for this Patreon request, and thanks to all my Patreon supporters. For only $7, you can get your own monthly movie review. Ask me to review anything I haven't already. There's also other perks like blogs, exclusive videos, and early access. You can also follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And thanks so much for watching this video.